Welcome to a serious episode of Out of the Blank podcast, and I'm back again with my buddy Jason, who's
So serious.
this is going to be very serious. And my big question for you is, how come all the cents that I donate with every purchase that I buy is not saving Africa? What's going on? I'm pretty sure I've donated probably at least $1 worth in my whole entire lifetime with all the change and the 2 cent rounding up to. Well, why isn't it doing anything? I'm not seeing any growth. It's a scam.
Well, Africa is an impoverished country, and I'm sure your dollar stretches a long way over there. But it's probably not going to quite dig them out of the depression that they're in right now.
If you look at some countries, like if you talk about currency, like you might have what, $50 in your wallet at the most, but then you go over there and you're a rich man. Like you can buy a
Oh
nice
yeah.
mansion. And would you rather be rich in America or in like a place with like where you could, be like a baller, I guess, like a Rob Lowe in today's society, at least over here? Or would you prefer to go to an impoverished country where you can build like an El Chapo mansion? I'm like, that's where you can get away with most stuff. I mean, Mexico, for instance, anybody goes over there and sells drugs, it's easier than selling drugs over here.
Yeah, your money would definitely go a lot further than being in the US. Although if you were in the US, you could use all the twisted little schemes that the wealthy use to like make yourself more rich. So you could go either way. I think it would be better to be rich like down on some tropical island somewhere or something where your money is like 10 times the value that it is here in the US. And you could just live off your money, have all the girls fanning you, giving you drinks all day, sit on a beach, do whatever you want. It'd be great.
If I offered you $1 billion or if I offered you your own island, which would you take?
Oh, I'd probably take the $1 billion. I'm kind of scared to live on an island, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think because I was just going to twist it and be like, oh, well, if you live on the island, you're going to be alone. You're not going to have anybody with you. So then you have to, and who's to say how big the island is? Like it could
That's
be a
right.
palm
It could
tree
be
on
a
the island.
single rock out in the middle of the ocean. It sits about 25 feet up above the water. Yeah, like one or two trees.
It
Mostly just a
takes,
bunch of birds that poop on it all day.
yeah, see, because then, see, I wouldn't mind being on my own island if I could be able to create anything that I
Yeah,
wanted to.
if I had my own island, I'd want a nice big island, like the island on Lost or something. Something with a nice mountain in the middle and quite a bit of beach, miles and miles and miles to get all the way around it.
Whenever I have a dream, my dreams are like super surreal, and I try and figure out why they always go on the same basis of me having like sandbox powers. And what I mean by sandbox powers for people listening, I'm not talking about a sandbox your kids will play in. I'm talking about like I can create anything and just make a bunch of stuff, but I start making really dumb shit. Like a house with when I played Sims, I would build a house and then I would build a pool in the basement. And that's not logical when you're thinking about mold issues and stuff like that, but it's a video game. But I do that in my dreams too. I make things so crazy and so like godlike powers and stuff like that, where I'm like not hurting anybody. I'm just building some really dumb stuff. Like I would start, like I spent I think 6 hours the other night just in my dream just building a pier, and I had the ability to just be like, I'm in a dream, pier. But instead, I just sat there with a hammer and nails and board by board was placing it the whole entire dream. I got splinters. I was
You
in
like the
pain.
satisfaction of building.
I
Yeah, I
guess.
mean that's awesome though. I wish that I had that much control in dreams. Most of the time it's out of my control and I just kind of go through these like situations and things and it's almost like I'm just watching from behind my eyes and my body does what it wants. And even like if I'm running from people and stuff, I run in slow motion. I can't get myself to run fast enough. I want that lucid dreaming power so bad. I've been doing the binaural beats and stuff, just hoping that I can unlock it.
Do you think though, like, because I know if you listen to something like I fell asleep listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, I actually want to talk about too. It's about plastics, for instance. But I fell asleep to that, and like I was everything that they were saying in the podcast episode, I was experiencing in my dream. But
Nice.
you practice forms of meditation. I mean, you got your meditation podcast, so why aren't you practicing lucid dreaming? I mean, it's easy when you figure it out. You just got to find a way to be able to get into that spot. Like people call themselves psychonauts, which are people that
Yep.
experience psychedelics and stuff like that. Well, one aeronautics was the ability to be able to control your own dreams. And it's not as hard as you probably think. I mean, you don't have to experience like anything, but you have to make sure you can give yourself certain signals or certain things that can be able to bring you out of this. Because when you're in a dream, you're kind of on autopilot. So, I mean,
Hmm.
much like most of the people in the world, you're just kind of experiencing nothing. You're not really taking a whole lot in. But if you can know you're in a dream, such as like if you're in a nightmare, I don't think I've gotten nightmares in a very, very long time. Like I've had some really realistic dreams where it's like, is this that paranormal shit that I've been known to be able to predict? And it's kind of hard, but like a lot of my dreams are so realistic. But then there's like, I'll have the one off where I'm building a fucking pier for 6 hours on a fucking island where there's just a pier, there's no home or anything. By the
He's
time
the
it's night,
builder,
I'm like,
man.
fuck, I don't have a
You
shelter.
see, it's telling you subconsciously that you want to build. You want to build beautiful things for the people.
I wanted to be an architect at one point, but then they were like, "Oh yeah, you got to take all these advanced math classes." I'm like, "Nope," and I just wiped my hands with that shit and walked out.
Hey, yeah, well, you do what you got to do, right?
I mean, you got to think though, math's kind of important in that aspect. I remember playing Minecraft, and everyone's like, "I built a 4x4," and I'm like, "My house is like one side of it's longer than the other. Everything's out of fucking place." And I was just too lazy to redo it, so I'm like, "Screw it, let me just play with this."
I was always so bad at that. But yeah, going back to the lucid dreaming, like I've done it a few times and it's easy when I've done it, like easy to control and stuff, but it's hard getting myself to that place where I can go into it. Like I think I've almost just slipped into it, just on a fluke almost. And just the right circumstances set it off, and then I was able to control it. It's really cool. But most of the time, they just my brain gives me those movies with all the people in your life, and they just play different roles and characters, and you just go through weird scenarios. It's just mostly just strange gobbledygook. And besides, I hate sleeping anyway. I only get about 4.5 hours of sleep a night, so I don't
So
get too much time for dreaming anyway.
that's about what I average, but they're so intense. Like I've talked to a couple of sleep scientists and sleep specialists where I'm like, what is this like? Why am I only getting a few couple of hours or something like that? But they feel like I'm asleep for years. And they're like, well, so like for instance, if you're an insomniac or if you're a low sleep person, the level you're functioning at right now, from what they told me, is like it's not your full capacity. So what you're doing now, it might be productive. Like if I do a podcast a day, or if you do multiple different podcasts, it might be super productive, but you would be even more productive if you got more hours of sleep. So like
Yeah.
technically you're aging yourself when you don't sleep enough by like 10, 15 years. So like I might be
Yeah, and
23, but I'm
raising
actually like 40.
your dementia risks as well for later on in life. They say that the less sleep that you get, the more the higher your chances are of getting dementia and stuff. I'm like, oh sweet, I already feel like such a dumbass sometimes. Like that's just what I need to be stupider.
I like to look at the optimistic side of that. You can do a bunch of bad shit and not remember you're doing it.
There we go. You could just be like grandpa, like, oh, it's okay. It's just grandpa.
you
That's
got to
what he
think of the
does.
you got to think of the people that are going to be jealous at the fact that you'll be able to have like having dementia. There are probably people out there that are jealous that other people have dementia because they're able to forget so much stuff. Like you've probably had some nights where you're sitting like wide awake staring at your ceiling and thinking about something you did in like 8th grade where you're like, why is this happening to me right now? Why do I have to have these cringe moments? And I just thought about this
Yep.
the other day because literally yesterday I was driving my car and I saw this giant black smoke coming out of this forest and I'm like, is that a fire? And as I'm driving up, there's this one house in front of another house, and the one in the back was on fire. And I was like, oh my God, that's like my biggest fear in the world. I saw this person on their hands and knees screaming while the fire department's just drilling down their house. Everyone's turning their fucking
Wow.
head while driving, trying to, like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like,
You rubbernecker, you.
I felt so bad because I'm like, oh, that was my biggest fear as a kid was like setting the house on
Yeah,
fire. Like,
I don't like that either. I don't like any kind of loss of control and stuff. And so that's where the dementia scares me. It's like I know I don't have a lot of a brain, but I have an introspective brain and I have a critical thinking brain, and I'd like to keep it, at least as whole as possible until I get older so that I can enjoy it. Because right now I'm just too busy sometimes.
well, like what about something that's not in your control? Like you mentioned the wealth class being able to pull some strings and be able to kind of slip through a little bit like, compared to everybody else that has to kind of work the hard way. What
Yeah.
about like if there was something that you couldn't control that was happening to you and you didn't know it? And this leads into the plastic podcast I was listening to. So the way I've heard it is that you remember when they told you like don't drink a water bottle that's been sitting in a car all day in like the hot sun because it can give
Yeah.
you cancer?
Yeah, or they'll make you grow boobs or something. Yeah, or it was like it was bad effects from it, from the what was it? The oh, I lost it. Synesthesia. See, I'm already having dementia. See,
Okay,
it's already hitting.
well, this podcast I was listening to, a Joe Rogan podcast. Her name is, I think something. Her last name's Swan. I can't remember her first name, so forgive me on that. But
Yeah, keep going. I'll remember it. Besides, I haven't seen a JRE in so long, so like,
this
fill me
is
in.
this one is super interesting because like I have been bailing out, and much like you told me like why my podcast is you listen to it more than Joe Rogan just because I don't talk about cars and shit. A lot of that
Yeah,
is
I
that, and
just
I'm like,
really tune out. He
fuck.
starts talking about cars, and I'm like, here goes a half hour, 45 minutes of just him talking about cars. And he'll bring it up with guests that aren't even car people.
Yeah.
They'll just say something. He's like, what kind of car do you drive? And they're like, oh, I drive a such and such. And he's like, ah, pussy car. I drive a such and such. And then he just goes off for 40 fucking minutes. And you're like,
So
okay.
I've been doing that with my guests now. I'll mention something like, you know who Lorena Bobbitt is? Do-
Yeah, definitely.
How the fuck? Who's Lorena Bobbitt?
Lorena Bobbitt cut off her husband's wiener
Why does everybody know that? I felt
and
like
threw it out the window of her car.
every time I say that, and I'm like, who is it? And then they know exactly what she did. And I'm like, why the fuck was I the only person that didn't know this person's name? I knew that they did that. What really
Yeah.
scared me about that, and we'll get back onto the plastics thing, but what really
That
scared
was a
me about that
huge
is,
story. I remember that one. Like, he even became a porn star for a
yeah,
short
yeah,
stint
yeah.
afterwards.
It didn't look good at all afterwards.
Oh no, it was like
Surgery was not
Frankendick.
ready for that. But imagine this though. You're getting into a fight and you say something that pissed off your significant other to the point that they come over and they cut your dick off while you're driving and then they throw it out the window. You're screaming for about 30 or 40 minutes in pain, pulled over to the side of the road with your head on your window, spitting on the floor because you're in so much pain. You literally blood vessels popping in your eyes because you're screaming. Then you decide, I need to find my dick. And they spent a couple of hours. So you imagine a guy with a bloody crotch looking for his dick, just like, where is it? It's over here. That's a sausage. That's not my dick.
That's an old Taco Bell burrito over there. Dang it. I
um,
totally thought that was it for a minute. Looked like my foreskin.
but back to the plastics, for instance. So something that we can't control. So remember when they told you that if you drink a hot water bottle in the car, you can get cancer from it. So now they're starting to do a study
The
based from,
BPAs, that's what it was.
yeah.
It was the BPAs in it that were supposed to be bad for you.
Well, they did a study in 1973 compared to 2011 that the levels of reproductive health in the average person has went from 97 to 43. And they're starting to think it's a lot of the plastics. Even if you're drinking something out of a can, anything that's holding liquid that you're drinking out of, a little bit of that does get sucked into your system. And what they're finding out now is
Mhm.
it's not so much that you're going to die if you keep drinking soda or if you keep drinking this. I mean, other factors maybe, but not the can's not going to kill you, but
Certainly, the soda's way worse for you.
it is going to affect your reproductive count. So actually you're not hurting yourself, you're hurting your kid. So now kids are now
Mm,
being born with sterile issues. So this is why a lot of the world, like maybe in the next 30 or 40 years, we're going to be seeing a lot of things where there's going to be high sterile counts. I mean, a lot of people are like having
mm.
miscarriages because of it. Kids are developing certain
Yeah,
things inside
decline
of
in
them.
births.
Isn't that nuts? And I was wondering, I was like, so is this every country or is this just America, our plastic production or something like that? No, in Singapore, they only have like one kid per family. And that might sound like, oh, that must be like mandated or requirement. You can't have more than one kid. No, the
Mhm.
government's paying the people to try and have more kids because of their plastic production has been twice as much as ours, and for so
Wow.
long that you're starting to experience like a lot of people can't have another kid and it's very hard to even get one. I mean, here's the issue is instead of trying to fix the plastic situation, scientists are just going to be like, well, let's just make sure we can get better like frozen eggs, let's see if we can get this and stuff like that. And this scientist lady that was
Yeah.
on Joe Rogan, she was talking about, she went to a college and she tested kids, she did a study, she's like, you know,
Mhm.
give me like put your sperm in this cup, whatever, and I'm going to test it. And a lot of like, I think it was like 60 something percent of the kids that donated out of like 75 of them freaking had blank sperm cells. And I'm like, oh my God, like we're literally
Wow, that's huge.
if we're talking about like destroying the earth and it's going to end society or end our whole human species, maybe you get to the point where you end up making yourself sterile. So then nobody can have kids anymore. So then our species is just going to die off.
Yeah, there would be a mass extinction. I have wondered though, with as far back as they're finding human evidence, I wonder if we had populated the world once before, like really heavily like this, and that there was a big die off before that last big ice age. And because of the ice age, we have barely any evidence that there were humans on Earth, but we've found them as far as 140, 150, 160,000 years ago. I mean, who's to say we couldn't have built up? Look how short a time it took us to build up where we are now. Who's to say they couldn't have done that already once before and just everything died off and everything was destroyed?
I mean,
We
it's,
we died off down to, 10,000 people here, 10,000 people there, just starting to live as hunter gatherers again, and they built up society again. Who knows? We might have done it 3 times or 4 times.
you picked my favorite one, which is the Ice Age, which is the one like I'm most obsessed with. Just because the animals I feel
It's
like were cooler.
crazy.
They were
It just
cooler.
comes in and just covers everything for like 8,000 years.
Plus, the Ray Romano's in that movie with Ice Age, so it's kind of
True.
like
Those movies were pretty fun.
a win-win. But if you talk about like, I mean, the Earth has experienced at least four mass extinctions, different glacial periods and
Hmm.
things of that sort. So if you look at like when's our next extinction period, Bill Nye, at least from his new show, told me that it was coming up soon. But if you really truly examine of, let's say, all these mass or whatever, when the downfall of society starts to happen, if you look through any of the dynasties in China, if you look at any of these giant civilizations, Egypt, anything, it boils down to one concept, and it is gender. They take out
Hmm.
everything. They start dismantling everything that's been built up as a foundation or built up in a system, which some things should be, but then it always boils down to gender. And that's when society or that civilization crashes. It falls. It's because then now you're pointing at things that might be scientifically plausible. Even saying that is going to piss off some people. But it's creating conflict even more to where the point where
it's
you
because
basically tear
it's
each other
because
apart.
everybody's going trans. Are we destroying our society by turning everybody trans
I
and
think
and fluid gender?
I think it's more on the fact of like
It's
now
confusing.
nobody can
I'll
be
give it
right
that
and
much.
nobody can be wrong, and science is just proven false. Where it's like, how are we ever going to be productive when all we're doing is just destroying everything that we built up? It's
Yeah,
creating
but
like a
that's
false
just a swing
society.
there. We swing back and forth on that, For this 100 years, we're puritanical. For the next 100 years, we start sinning and living it up. And then for the next 100 years, we're puritanical. There's always a pendulum when it
Well,
comes to that kind
imagine
of stuff.
imagine if a higher being came down, like we can say aliens, you could say God, you could say whatever, but came down and told you and offered you this. I in one little splash of water or one little touch on your forehead, I will be able to revert you back to just like when you were a baby. Because this is what I start to like. Someone mentioned to me, like, babies are the purest form. And I'm like, that's very, very true. Because when you come out of the womb, you're are immediately hit with lights. You're immediately, your eyes are
Yeah.
still kind of like getting used to everything. Your hearing is getting used to everything. You just get
Hmm.
used to so much that slowly you start to degrade down from there. Even when you're growing,
Yeah.
you start
And
to
just
degrade.
total innocence. Your soul hasn't been tainted in the slightest. You're
So
brand new.
this is gonna relate a little bit to you. If somebody came to you and said, before you even smoked weed for the first time, before you did any drugs, before you did anything in your life, I'm going to revert you back to just like the same stage as a baby health wise. You're still going to be yourself, but you're going to be blank again. You're going to be pure, just like you just came out of the womb, all refreshed, like one of those cleanses. A lot of people that go, well, I don't think marijuana is bad. There's an effect there, much like the plastic bottles on you. There's an
Hmm.
effect there. It's gonna mess with your lungs a little bit. And I start to wonder, would you want that? Because then I feel like you're not a baby. When you're a baby and that's happening to you, everything you don't notice it because it's all happening at such a slow rate. But if I took all of that away from you, when you're 40 and you've lived this whole entire life, you're like, oh my God, I don't have back pain. Oh my God, I don't have this. Oh my God, I don't, all these things you've just gotten used to, where it's like
Oh,
now you're
like a
going to
totally
experience it
fresh
all.
body. I gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's what they're working on, right? They want to upload our consciousness into a computer, and then they want to download us into a fresh new body
Yeah, I'm just talking
without the
about throwing
aches
you
and
through like a
pains
washing
and
machine or something like that, like SpongeBob, where he clears them off when he has the suds and tosses them up.
yep, there you go. Just a freshly scrubbed new body. Well, I mean, that's kind of like we'd go through the whole 7 years cycle. So we get new cells every 7 years, and it pretty much replenishes our whole body. So technically every 7 years or so, but it's all in stages. It's not like it happens at once, and
That
7 years go by and you wake up one morning, you're like, I feel different.
your cells in your skin and some of your organs, but there are other things that do not get fixed at its severity. That's what I'm saying is you're not like shedding, you're not like a
Yeah, for
skin,
sure. You
you're
got a
not,
lot of broken cells in there, especially as you get older.
yeah, you're not like a snake that sheds its own skin and gets a whole new fresh thing of skin. No, there's organs that can't repair certain things as well too. So I'm saying all of that gets wiped away. Would you want that,
Okay.
or would you be like, I'm fine with,
Am I
my
like So
limp?
you were saying like the cannabis though? Am I like supposed to give up all that stuff too though?
Well, you can start
Because
smoking
I
it
don't
again,
know,
but then you're
like
going to go right back to where it was before.
well, it's the amount of damage on your lungs is pretty negligible. I mean, it's way less than smoking cigarettes and stuff, and
I could just
so
picture a higher
I'll take
being
my chances.
giving you a second chance, and
I'll
then
take my chances, God.
not even like 3 hours later, you're taking a bong rip, and the being just goes, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like I just
With
performed a
this fresh
miracle on you."
brain though, it's so nice.
Yeah,
Woo.
it's like, dude, it's like getting high for the first time. It's like,
It's
oh
like,
my
yeah,
god.
this is the first time again. Oh man, but you get all paranoid and stuff. Woo, that'd be rough.
But that
You'd have
means
to go through all that all over again.
even your
You'd have to
thoughts would be
retrain yourself
different.
not to have the munchies. God, that's rough.
Look, Jason, I would like to take you back to a stage to learn to not talk over me because I will kill you.
I've stopped.
No, but you seriously got to. I've been thinking about that. I was like, what I want to know though, because what am I
Yeah, I
so
mean,
used to
who wouldn't want to
now?
do that?
Well, what am I so used to now that if they refreshed me, would I be aware of it? You know what I mean? Like what's going on?
Oh, are you saying a whole brain scrub too? So I start out like fresh as a baby,
No, you're still
like
gonna have like your
even
thoughts and
brain
stuff too,
wise.
but like if you have, certain like people that have cluster headaches, from war or something like that, or if you have like a
Oh,
certain, I get
gotcha.
migraines, I get this, none of that anymore. You're refreshed.
Well, I mean, that sounds fantastic. Who wouldn't go with that?
Yeah, but then you would slowly realize how much pain you were in for so long. And then now you have to try your hardest to be so conscious of your life now, where you're like, am I sitting up straight? Am I doing this too much? Am I drinking enough water? Like, even water, people talk about if you drink too much water, you can die. Just drinking water, you're hurting yourself because you ever drink it too fast, you feel your heart feel
Mhm.
strained. You're straining your muscles by having this thing. You're telling me that there isn't a small, minuscule amount of water that goes through your throat a little bit too fast and ends up ripping up a lining or doing something, or you choke on it or something like that. There's
Or you drink a
everything
whole
that
bunch of
you
cold water, and then all the blood has to go from your body to your stomach to warm it up to body temperature so you can process it. That's another one.
I don't know why when you said that, I just immediately thought of like those people that are surviving in winter and they cut an animal open and crawl up inside of it. Imagine that. Imagine going back to a civilization where you had to do that to survive.
Yeah, had to climb into a bear just to make it through the night. Sounds interesting. I think I'd be okay.
I want
I'm
to know
pretty tough.
how did you kill that bear? I don't know how you killed it.
It's I'd have a nice spear. That's like the first thing I do. If I'm up in the woods, like I'm making a nice walking stick and I'm making a nice spear.
Okay, you don't really need to make a nice walking stick. You just pick up a random nice stick on the ground.
No, no, no. There's a science to it.
There's a
It has to be
science to
just
making a
right.
walking stick.
It's gotta be just the right length. You got to break off all the burrs. It's got to have a nice solid base on it. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. If you just pick up a random stick, you're just gonna grab a blackberry bush vine or something and just be like, "This is my stick," oh,
I don't know if this
and
is
it
like
won't work.
I don't know if this is like this for you, but whenever I like get like a nice like walking stick or something like that, I have to connect with it. Like I don't know, not like intimate, like give it a nice dinner or something like that, but I have to be like, it has to be appealing to my eyes. It has to also,
Hold
but then if yeah,
caress it.
yeah, if but if you literally think about it though, like if you literally carry this walking stick for at least like a couple of days or something like that, you develop a connection, like you name it, and then
Yeah.
you will literally be sad when it gets destroyed. It's our human ability to connect with things.
Yeah, I don't like to leave them. I sometimes will like set them up at the trailhead so that if someone else walks by, they can see it and go, "That looks like a good walking stick," and then they'll pick it up and they'll have a new friend.
Or you come across some jackass that just snaps it in half, like fuck this stick.
Well, I guess it was a temporary thing. Everything in life is temporary.
But it goes back to what we were saying. Imagine how many things that we have looked at that we have destroyed when something maybe before us, if there was a pre-civilization before us that has left it there for us thinking we were going to do this with it and we went the complete opposite way.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's been a lot of that. We're driven by ego too much sometimes to open our eyes to the big picture.
What's the
Everybody
big
is all
picture?
about me, and they don't like to think about the fact that we all kind of share this consciousness. We all kind of share this energy. Our meat sacks are all powered by the same source. That's what connects us. And there's a lot of people out there that are just me, and they won't open their eyes to it.
But is that a built up skill, or is that an inherent skill inside of us that to learn to protect yourself before protecting somebody else? Because we already know about group thinking, getting up into groups and building up communities is a great way to survive. But what about the people that are alone? And this kind of came to me when I was talking to a guy about jobs and he was telling me all these things about jobs being different. And I was like, have you ever like, I mean, especially from my own experience, driving at like 1 o'clock in the morning, I'll drive by like a hotel, which there are a lot in my town, and I'll just look up at the windows and I'll see like in the top left corner, there's a light on, the middle, there's a couple of lights on. And then like, there's all these rooms that are normal people sleeping. And then there's those night owls, the ones that stay up at night and they're thinking or they're creating. I'm like, are these people like the
That's my
ones that,
apartment.
yeah, but the ones that choose to be alone, the ones that choose to be up while the rest of the world is sleeping, these
I
creatives,
love it. I get the most done.
are these people that can survive on their own? Not like leaving your house and then doing this. I mean, like, and nobody around. Like, would those be the people that would be left over in the next civilization when this one collapses or something like that? I'm trying to think, because if I was given that ability to survive, let's say most of the population of the world's gone, there's only like maybe 10,000 on Earth left. Would I want that to be me? And I'm like, I don't think so, because I can't make a gun. I can't do anything survival technique wise. I wouldn't last long. It'd be a waste of a person. I'm like, pick somebody else.
Well, you got to try. If you're thrown into the situation, you just got to buck up and deal with it, right? So, if you're put into the situation, some people are just I hate saying it, but some people are just weak, weak-minded, weak-willed, and they just don't have what it takes at all to like survive. I feel like we are actually even better equipped because we only need such a short amount of sleep time and we can still get by and survive. So that gives us, instead of most people who only get 16 hours of that day, we get like 20 hours of the day. That's more preparing that we can do.
Yeah, and also like depending on like we know probably a bunch of people that are very, very clean, need like an emotional connection or need like a personal connection or just a connection in general to survive. Like if they don't have it one day, they're just losing their mind. I'm like, we would probably be pretty good because a lot of the times we're balancing ourselves out with our own thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can be by ourselves comfortably.
Hmm.
I like that.
So you need a human touch to get you to the next day.
Human touch, please. I'm married. I don't get human touch anymore.
You still have but it's like the hopes on the horizon. That's the thing though. Every day it's
Oh,
like
I
trying to.
know. It's like seeing that ship that's just out almost at the horizon line, and you're like, one of these days that ship's gonna sail back to me.
Think
And every
of
night it looks like it's still on the horizon line.
Think of that though. Imagine at one point somebody thought to build a lighthouse and make sure that every day they would light this light that would lead you through the darkness from crashing into the shore, being able to guide ships to safety. And we just see
Yep.
them in movies as these horror killers or wherever a bad murder happens.
No, I think they were pretty good people. I mean, they went out there and they braved the elements and they did a really hard job.
Like the
And
volunteer fire department. Nobody's fucking paying a guy to light the lighthouse. He's doing it on his own accord.
right, that guy just jumps in his car and drives into danger, and everybody's like, well, he's just a volunteer, who cares?
We're sitting here thinking this guy's a great guy. I bet it was in his lease. Like, hey, every night at this hour, you have to turn on the fucking
Oh yeah.
lighthouse.
What if the lighthouse keepers were really like prisoners and they just kept them chained up in the lighthouse? And like the door was locked like a prison cell, and they just had to go up every night and turn on the light. And
Like
that was all they could do.
when you're a
If they
kid,
didn't, the warden would come in and beat on them, and then they'd remember the next night.
like when you're a kid,
You climb those 200 rickety stairs in a spiral and you turn on that light. You better turn it on before it gets dark, and you better turn it off when it gets light again. And then you climb your ass back down here, and you be careful. But if you die, we'll get another guy.
I'm just thinking like when you're a kid and you look and you see other people picking up trash on the side of the road and you think, wow, they're good people picking up trash. And it's like, no, you realize they're prisoners. Like, oh my God, wait, no,
Yeah, they all
they're
have such cool orange jackets. Yeah.
they got such Backstreet Boy style.
I know, man. There's a whole bunch of them, and there's always this one guy out there looking out for him. He's got a gun, even. Like, I know that they're safe.
If you were gonna get arrested for something, what would that be?
Oh, I don't even know. I'm like, I don't have a felonious bone in my body. I don't cheat people. I don't steal. God, I hardly can lie. And I'm just like, when people talk to me, I'm just like flayed open. I'm like, anything that you want that's in my brain, take it. Like, I'll give it to you freely. Honestly, it would have to be just some mistake I made or something. Like
Like
I
skipping out on
picked
taxes
up
or some dumb
something,
shit
or I
like that.
skipped out on something. Like, they sent me an email and I didn't know, and I just continued to ignore it or something. That'd be about the only way that I would get in trouble for anything.
Would you know how to pay your
That's how they came
taxes
after
if
me
they
for child support.
would you know how to pay your taxes if they weren't automatically taken out of your check?
um Yeah, I've done it a couple of times. Mostly the missus does that for me though. She's awesome. She does all the paperwork stuff. I do the work, she does the paperwork.
At least you got
Good
balance, like
trade-off.
someone that does all the financial stuff and you just have to go to your job or whatever and make the
She's
money.
a wizard. Like, seriously, she is a financial wizard. She took me from when we got together. I had a credit score that was nothing. I had a credit score that every time someone would pull it up, it would say severe credit risk. And she took me up to, I just checked it, 718, and it's still going up.
What is a severe credit risk?
That means that they can't even offer you credit. That means the only kind of credit that you can get is credit where you pay in the amount of credit that you want, and then they let you borrow off of what you paid in. So you pay them $500 and they give you $500 of credit, which
It's like
is
the
kind of a
fucking
ripoff.
TSA when you're going
I
through
mean, that's
airport
just a
security.
savings
There's
account.
just a flag on your fucking account. Like, hey man, give this guy a
Severe credit
search.
risk.
Jesus, this dude's a flight risk.
They're like, he probably can't even afford this plane ticket.
I would see that's what scares me is like we're all being technically like everyone's worried about a microchip. I'm like, we're already technically in the system. Like they know where we're at basically all
Yeah, right.
times if they just
I
want to
know, and
find
I'm the
us.
only Jason Lamproe in the world. So like, I can't even do any kind of crime with my name and get it passed off on someone else.
Like I went 10 years without going to like a doctor at all because you didn't have medical insurance. So it was like you broke something, you broke something.
Yeah, I
And
went through that too at one point.
my doctor's like, we don't have anything on you. I'm like, what? He's like, when's the last time I went to the doctor? I was like, I don't know, when I was 5. He's like, you're 18. I was like, I know. So how are we going to fix this? And he's like, you got to fill out all this paperwork. And it was like a stack of paperwork. And I was like,
Oh, it's horrible. I
oh,
hate it.
oh, man, I would love to be a ghost, but imagine if you're a ghost. Next thing you know, you're fucking, I mean, not like a dead person, but a ghost of the system. And the next thing you know, it's like, fuck, you get hurt or something. What are you going to do unless you can't do it? Fix yourself.
True that. You show up at the hospital and nobody will know who you are. They're like, who is this guy? We got a
Sir,
name, but we
you
don't have
died in
any medical
2002.
information whatsoever. We thought that you were out of the system. We thought you were dead.
We thought, see, that's the thing too. When someone dies, like that person has to go through calling every single one of those credit card companies or something like that to be able to cancel all their accounts, all their financial stuff, and do all that. I'm like, that's a fucking pain in the ass. Why don't you just like one person call and be like, hey, he's dead, and the next thing you know, he calls everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually that it would get around from this one to this one to this one. So even if you didn't say anything, I think they'd eventually figure it out when they couldn't get a hold of you and stuff. They're like, well, he was kind of old, and we've been sending him all kinds of stuff, and he hasn't answered. There's a good chance this guy isn't around anymore.
Yeah, but they always have to hire someone to make sure it wasn't like an insurance scam or you faked your own
Oh, for
death.
sure. Well, that's just crossing their T's and dotting their I's, right?
I would hate to have that job. Be like, all right, we need you to dig up this coffin
Just
and
need
make
to
sure
make
the
sure you're
person's
dead or not.
actually dead.
Well, I mean, that's just as boring as those ones where they look for people with the bad backs with insurance claims, and they go sit outside their place for 2 days and watch them just to make sure they're not doing stuff they're not supposed to. They're like, I just saw him pull his groceries out of the back of the car. He said he's got a bad back. He's on an insurance claim right now. We got him. Yeah,
See, that
it's
scares me
ridiculous.
when they're talking about the COVID thing and they're talking about the microchip. Imagine if it's like, hey, you're supposed to be at home not driving because of your back issues. And then you see like through the microchip that the person's driving and you're like, what happened? You're supposed to stay home. Guess we're gonna have to pull out all your funding that you're getting every week.
Yeah, when I mean we got a microchip anyway. We all carry our phones everywhere we go. Our phones keep track of all that stuff for them anyway. I went on my Google the other day. It's got every single trip that I make in the car, every single one, and every single stop at every single store, and every single house that I go to. It's got the complete trip that I make every day.
Oh my God. See, that's just easy for Hitman to be able to track your
It's
phone and see what your
crazy. I know. If
routine and
they hacked my
schedule is.
phone, they could just see where I'm at any given Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They could just be waiting outside, pop a cap in me. I'd
You
never
would be
know.
surprised. You would think that with that type of knowledge, there would be a lot more like JFK assassination style things.
Yeah, well, I'm just hoping that no one wants to put a hit on me. Then I'm straight.
It's $5,000 to put a hit out on somebody. You better not piss off somebody who's like rich and has that money to throw out.
I know, right? And it would be so much cheaper to just buy a handful of bullets, honestly.
It would just be easier to figure
Just
out
do
what
it
his
yourself. Make
allergy
it
is,
look
and
like a
then
botched strawberry, right?
it would be. Dude,
Meet them in a dark alley, bang, 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 rifle through their pockets a little bit, wear gloves, and then, oh, well, they must have got robbed.
How do you know though? Like when they say wipe down all the fingerprints, how do you know? How do you know that your fingerprints are all gone?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, fingerprinting is a really imprecise science,
Yeah,
and
junk
it's
science.
not as heavily used as they say that it is on television, because fingerprints can be identical with different people, and they also can be really hard to read and really hard to match up. So honestly, if you wear
So is blood
gloves, shoot
splatter in
someone, rifle
animals.
through their pockets, you're probably fine,
So is blood
as
splatter
long as you weren't on
analysis.
camera.
I think there might be a delay when we're talking.
What was it?
Exactly.
I missed you.
Yeah, that happens.
I love our quiet moments
I
together.
was saying blood splatter analysis, so those blood swap things is also junk science too. It's the same thing when they try and predict like it was this match that burned down this
Yeah.
house. That's all junk science too. This is why I don't talk shit on Kim Kardashian, because she's the
Yeah,
one
and
that
that's
gets
not
wrongfully.
saying that in a lot of cases they can't find that stuff. Sometimes it's just pretty clear and present where a fire starts or whatever. But yeah, I do think that they on television and stuff they like to portray it as a more exact science.
It's not just in television though, like wrongfully imprisoned people that are finally like there's the Innocence Project, where they go and they find people in
Hmm.
prison that are wrongly accused. A lot of
I love
those is
that
like
stuff.
it's lawyer shit, man. It's like it's
Hmm.
all a
Oh
game. It's
yeah.
like where's the fucking truth to it all? Why would you want to imprison someone just because it's like we don't have any other suspects, so might as well send him to jail? It's like
Yeah,
fucking.
well, we're having imperfect people judging people. That judge might just be having a bad day that day and just sent everyone away and didn't even listen to what they had to say about the case. He just was having a rough day and just was like, I'm going to send them all off. And then some innocent guy spends 10 years, 15 years in jail because of it.
What do you think about the death penalty?
I don't know. I I feel sometimes like it's needed because I feel like there are a few people out there that are just like rabid dogs in society. There are few people out there that no matter what you do, you're never going to get through to them. They've been scarred too much by life, or just have mental issues that they can't get past you no matter how hard you work with them.
You're
And
talking
I
about the
think that there
unfixable.
are, yeah, like just completely demented cases. The people that if they manage to get out, that they're gonna just go repeat the behavior. In those cases, maybe. And you know what else? Pedophiles. Fucking pedophiles.
How do
There's
you
a
know if
prison
they're
up here in
unfixable though?
Washington, like 75 miles from me, that's got like 300 and something pedophiles in it, and they can't
Jesus.
release them. They're all cases that they can't release because these are hardcore pedophiles that as soon as they get back out on the street, they're hunting again.
How do
And
you
it's a
know if
whole
they're not
prison of these
how do
guys.
you know if they're not fixable though? Have you tried giving them psychedelics? This is why I say we should start a program called Psychedelics for Convicts, where you
All right,
literally
so
you get someone so high they have to re-examine in their whole life, like the fabric of their reality has been torn down to realize what a horrible demon person they are. Next thing you know, they're intro or they're fixed. Because I mean, if you're taking salvia or something explicitly heavily,
yeah, I've
especially
been through that myself.
there, give me an example.
The stripping down of the ego. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm the way I am today, is because of the psychedelics that I took in my 20s. My early to mid 20s, I did a lot of psychedelics. Actually, I'd say probably all the way through my 20s. And I never really realized the effects of it, but I feel like I'm a lot more of a critical thinker. I feel like I'm a lot more compassionate than most people are. Just little things. Like I feel like I have a little bit easier time in life because of it.
Do you think it
It's just odd. It's just how I feel.
Do you think it just tore down or showed you, like we were saying before about going back to a pure state? Do you think it just brought you back of like kind of stripping down like these
Yeah,
chains that are around your brain?
it showed me like the inside of things a little bit. It showed me that we're all beings of energy, like I was saying. It showed me that we're all connected. And now that I know that, how can I be mean to my fellow man? Well, I'm just being mean to myself.
Do you feel like if there was an actual emotional or spiritual connection that you might have with a loved one that you had with every single person, where if one person hurt another person you would feel that person's pain, that maybe the acts would happen a lot less?
Hmm, that's a tough one to say. Um, I think yes. I think in a way yes. I think if someone could really experience the true pain that they inflict on people, somebody that does it on the regular, if they were to experience this pain, it might change their mind on things. But then again, they could be one of the unfixable, and you might just have to take them out.
Well, it comes from the old school realm of thought when you stole something of somebody's that you would get your hand chopped off, or if you killed the farmer's son, then your son would have to die. But I don't
Yeah, that's a bit barbaric.
That's just trying to create the pain that that person experienced that a
Mm,
lot of people aren't going to experience. Like I think when you were mentioning like a certain thing that happens to you or something, that a lot of people wouldn't be able to experience. Like most people have, I would say, a longer tolerance for emotional hurt or physical hurt based on what they've already experienced in their life. So, would yeah, but anybody that's experienced something like that wouldn't want someone else to experience that same exact pain. But it does
oh, for
maybe
sure.
maybe that's where virtual reality needs to go instead of like fighting somebody in a video game or being able to fuck somebody in a virtual reality thing. Maybe they should just make it to the point where they can give you the same experience of what this would feel like my biggest thing I'm kind of proud of that I've done is being able to try and understand invisible illnesses a lot more, especially like
Hmm.
things that we can't see that people suffer from, like endometriosis or whatever that disease is called. Things that, like, if I have stomach pain or intestinal pain, best thing, my boss had a piece of his
Hmm.
intestine cut out in surgery because he was experiencing things. So whenever I say I have like an issue with my like intestine or my stomach, he's like, "Go home. I know exactly how that feels." But if
Yeah,
I went to
it's
say
great
that,
that you got that.
yeah, but if I went to say that to someone else that doesn't have that or doesn't know what that's like, it's like, well, you can tough it out. It's like, yeah, we all
Mhm.
have headaches and stuff like that, but it's
Yeah,
nothing. It's so hard to understand when someone's going through something like organ failure or something like that. Like it's so
yeah.
hard to understand what that feeling is like.
That's why it's good to have lots of empathy, you know. I have empathy for everybody, even people that aren't in pain. Like, I mean, some people I have empathy for because they just were raised wrong. They just had crap parents that didn't know how to raise a kid properly, that, you know, let them do whatever they wanted, or just were overly strict and just kind of messed up their kid and sent them out into the world kind of messed up. And some of them bounce back from that. Some bounce back from adversity and become awesome people, and some of them just kind of go out and be broken and you know, become garbage people and make garbage kids because they don't know any better. So I have empathy for those people, you know. Like, I feel like if they had been given the fair shake, they probably wouldn't be in the situation. They'd be a little higher than they are currently, you know.
That empathy line gets stopped and drawn when you start including anger when they become an asshole to you. It's like, all right, I don't have any fucking empathy for you anymore.
No, I have very little anger too, honestly. I do have a temper, but it's a real flash. It's a flash in the pan. Like, I yell for a minute and I'm angry, so angry, and then it's just like as fast as it came on, it's gone. I just like it's forgiven, whatever. It's water under the bridge.
Is there cause to it or is it just random snaps?
I think I kind of got it from my dad because he was like that. I always thought that my dad was going to kill me if I did something bad as a kid. He was
Jesus.
loud. He was one of those people that would, like, whatever it was in his hand, he would just throw across the room and shatter against the wall. And, I mean, like, he threw like 15 remote controls when I was a kid. He had to replace them like once a month. He'd have to replace the universal remote because he threw it across the room and shattered it on the wall.
I can understand that though, because I'm definitely like an explosive type when it comes to objects, not an explosive type when it comes to hurting someone. Like I think that's better than actually going up and like
Yeah,
beating the shit out of somebody.
yeah, that was his thing, was like he didn't really want to have to put physical restraints on us. I mean, I got like two spankings in my life, but I also got yelled at a lot. So I mean, that was just his way of keeping us in line. I think he was like, my dad beat me until I was bloody and I had to soak my clothes in the bath to get them off.
Oh my
And I don't
God.
want to do that to my kids.
Okay.
So instead of beating us, he just yelled. But the problem was that it was so scary when he yelled. I thought that he was going to kill me. So it might have actually been a little bit worse for me than just getting a beating every now and again. Wild, huh? But he broke the cycle of abuse, and I appreciate him for it.
It's
I
kind
don't
of
want to get beat and have to soak in the tub to get my bloody clothes off.
it's kind of scary when you look at like there was that one woman that got so fed up with her kids. She's like, let's go take a trip to down to the river, and she killed all three of her kids that way. I'm like, I would hate to be like, how do you know? You're lucky if that doesn't happen to you. Like I know plenty of moments I probably pissed off one of my parents where it's like, why didn't you kill me?
I know, right? They're so small and vulnerable. Like, every parent, every good parent thinks, man, I could just end you right now, you little shit. You know, like, you know,
That's just natural,
you're
like things
giving
that
me
people
so much
do.
hell. You know, all I would have to do is just wrap my hands around your throat for about, you know,
God,
2 minutes and you're gone. And I don't have to deal with you anymore. I don't have to deal with any of it. You know,
everyone
they'll
has
put
their
me in a
like
nice jail
line where they
cell.
get pushed
They'll
to.
give me 3 hots and a cot. It'll be so quiet and peaceful.
Oh my God. I try and think of like how many people are on that edge where they'll Lorena Bob at somebody.
I don't know. That's scary. I think that's a little extra deranged on that one.
It takes 7 days if you're stranded on an island with someone to start thinking about killing them and eating them. So I'm just letting you know that. And that's with all people. That's not just like, oh, I'm morally
That
like
makes
accepting
sense.
this. No, it's with everyone.
That makes sense. I mean, like, you're gonna exhaust your options, but especially if you're on like that tiny island we were talking about, you know, how long are you gonna make it if it's just you and your homie there on the island waiting for someone to show, you know, a week in, and there's nothing in sight to eat, and then what do? You know, can't even drink the water. Surrounded by the sea.
Would you wanna, like, when someone goes, "Here, you eat my finger and then I'll eat your finger." Would you wanna survive though, knowing that you've eaten human flesh?
Well, I don't know. There's been a lot of cannibals that have done it, and they seem to be okay. I think you're just not supposed to eat the brains. I don't want the Jacobson Crutchfield or whatever.
The what?
But I guess if you gotta, well, you can get a brain disease from eating people's brain that can make you insane.
I'm guessing the guy who did that probably was eating people's brains thinking it was gonna enhance his intelligence.
It's called Jacobson Crutchfield or something like that. And it's like a a protein in their brain when you consume it, like goes into your brain and messes your brain up. And that's why a lot of the cannibal cultures died out, was because they were eating the brains, and it was messing them up. It's kind of like how they got kind of like mad cow disease for people, basically,
So, like bath salts.
because that's how cows got mad cow disease. I can't say disease for some reason. That's how cows originally got mad cow disease, is because they were grinding up cows in the cows' food, and they ground up their brains as well. And when the cows ate the brains, it messed them up.
You gotta be a special type of person to feed an animal the same thing.
Right, to feed a cow cows, right? And they do it.
That's why I don't trust barbecue places. Like, you ever look at a piece of barbecue so closely, like, this looks like it's got a fucking wristwatch on it.
Oh, I know. I had a Chinese food place by my house that I swear back in the day used to serve cat. I like there were no neighborhood cats in the anywhere in the vicinity of that Chinese food restaurant, and that meat was always kind of stringy. Their marfar chicken was always a weird texture.
They paint their
I
pork
always
pink.
wondered.
They paint it pink.
I know, but it's so good.
Why does it have to be pink though?
I don't understand it either. Maybe to like make it look rare or something.
If you're cooking chicken and you cut it and you see that it's pink on the inside, do you continue eating it? No, you cook it some more.
Oh my God, I have bit into pink chicken like that before, and it's so disgusting. And I went over to my sister's house one time, and my brother-in-law made wings, and he was like, "Oh, these I've been working on these extra. These are the special sauce that I just created, and I mixed all the spices and everything." We were like, we were getting all right. This is going to be awesome, and we all bit into it almost the same time, and the whole inside was pink. And we all just about threw up. It was disgusting. It's like you tried so hard, but then you fucked up on the baking instructions.
What food would you be upset with if you found out it was made of like human flesh or human juices or something? It could be a drink, but
Oh,
you
let's
wouldn't be so deterred
see.
from drinking it or eating it anymore. You would still eat it.
Oh, it'd be that good, huh? I don't know. I don't have very many foods like that anymore. I mean, I guess
Because like the rumor about Mountain Dew reduces your sperm count, like, but people still drank it. So I'm wondering if there was something that would happen, like knowing that this drink or food was going to make you sterile for the rest of your life, but you loved it so much you continued on doing it.
I mean, I've kind of my diet has changed up so much. I can't think that there's very much of anything that I can't live without. I mean, maybe like maybe coffee, but then I pretty much know what's in my coffee, so not to worry about that one. My energy
Imagine if
drinks,
someone, hold
possibly.
on.
Like, what if my energy drinks had someone squeezins in them, like brain squeezins in your energy drink to give you more energy or something?
So
Would that be worth it?
my doctor brought this up to me. She was like, "How much caffeine do you consume on a daily basis?" And I was like, "A lot." Like, I mean, I used to kill like 12 energy drinks like it was nothing. And she just goes, "There's a possibility that you've built up your tolerance for caffeine so much that you've actually fried some of your nerve endings into your brain with all the
For
caffeine
sure.
stimulants. So now you just can't have that reaction to caffeine anymore, and you might experience some other health issues." And I'm like, yeah, like I just saw an article. A kid was drinking like 20 monsters a day or something like that. And this
Mhm.
happened back in the day too. It's not new, but this just happened again recently. A 23-year-old died because he was drinking massive amounts of caffeine. And I'm like, imagine someone told you you're going to die if you keep doing this, but you love it so much you continue on doing it. Would that be energy drinks with you?
Um, I could stop them. I did for actually. I went for well over a year just a while back. I got on a big Joe Rogan health kick, and I did like a no sugar October, and made it through all of October, no sugar, cut out energy drinks and everything. And then I even stayed healthy and kept it going from there, and went like almost a year. But then COVID hit, and it messed up everything. And now I'm drinking energy drinks and eating like a glutton. You know what I did the other day? I want to slap myself just for being so bad. I went and bought Chewy Chips Ahoy and a tub of white icing. And I just been making these Chewy Chips Ahoy icing cookies and mowing them down. And I'm like, I feel like such a fat kid. God, that's the worst thing I could be stuffing in my face right now. But they're
Sounds
so
amazing.
good.
It sounds amazing. Wait, hold on.
They're so good.
If you found out you were going to die in like a day, what would you eat for your last food?
That's a tough one. I would probably go get all of the stuff and make my traditional lasagna that I make, because I make a badass lasagna, and I haven't made it in years because of Amelia's allergies. But I'd make it with real noodles, with gluten, and I'd make it just the way I love it, and it would be exquisite.
You have a special
And I
name
would
for this lasagna. I remember you telling me.
nothing I could think of. It's just always been one of my specialties. It's one of the things I've been able to make really good for most of my life. That baklava is another one. Enchiladas. I make bomb enchiladas.
Damn,
I do a lot of cooking. I do most of the cooking in the house. I'm really limited with my daughter's allergies. What we did is we pulled most of the stuff in the house that she can't eat. And we occasionally eat eggs and stuff, but we don't have regular bread anymore. It's all gluten free and vegan and stuff. And so we skip up bread now and stuff.
So you're
She eats
miserable
it,
24/7.
but that gluten free vegan bread is so gross. The texture is all off.
It's
And
dust
it's
it's dust in bread
crunchy.
form.
It's like it's like sawdust. You have to put so much butter and jam and stuff on it to even be able to stomach it. But
I had one of those like
the kiddo
gluten-free.
eats it
I
every
had one of
day.
those gluten-free breads from like the gluten-free. I was like, I'll try this. I've never, I don't. Maybe what's the difference? It was like I took a log out of the fireplace that had been burned, and I just bit into it, and it was nothing but ash.
That's those Ezekiel breads and stuff, man. They're so bad. It's like you just picked up a handful of dry oats and millet and stuff and just shoved it in your mouth.
Like that doesn't sound like it's gonna work well in your intestines at all.
Oh, well, good fiber at least, right?
Yeah, you gotta be careful though, man, because I eat a lot of Raisin Bran, and that's not
You'll
helping
be
me out
pooping
any.
those seeds out though.
Ah, why do you got to turn my show dirty?
Come on. Like you've never talked about poop before, right?
Not once in my entire podcasting adventure.
You lie.
That's funny because you know me so well. Usually every conversation,
Yeah.
everyone
I haven't
thinks
listened to
about
the
it. We
last
all do it.
200 podcasts and not know a little bit about you.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair, I guess. What's my
By
middle
the
name?
way, I'm totally stoked to see that Nutty Buddy's got another episode. I can't wait to listen to that one.
It's always fun having Adam on because he told me
He's a hoot.
he told me I was a libertarian, but we just went off about like the government and the world and stuff like that, which is always fun because I'm like, I don't really side in a lot of things, but then we just started talking. We did talk about gun control though, which I was like, if you just have a mental health check is my big importance on having guns.
Mhm.
He didn't agree with that because he was like, a rope, you would kill yourself either way. And I was like, yeah, but if you tell someone they have to use a rope to kill themselves compared to using a gun, the gun's a lot easier for a lot of people to do that. And it might actually deter some people that are like, I don't know if I could put a rope around my neck and jump off my balcony.
True. It's tough. It's kind of like it's rights versus if it's responsible. I can see it from both sides on that. That's why it's such a tough issue. But I love his points. Like he's really pretty spot on with how I feel about stuff too. I just
He's
feel
real,
like,
which is why I like it.
it's all a game. They're all just playing a game with us. They're playing us against each other, and they're just collecting all the wealth from us, and we're just sitting here like, hey, how come we can't make enough money to pay our rent anymore? And they're like, because we have all your money, suckers.
I consider us all like kindergartners, and they're the teacher that's just pulling the blocks away and then adding it when we start having a panic attack.
Yeah, the teacher that's nicking all the kids' candies behind their back and stuff. Yeah. I know they won't let us have any freedoms and stuff. They're just barely letting up as it is. You'd think that with as much as they're robbing us blind, the least they would do is give us a little more freedom.
At least if you're gonna fuck me, pay the bill at least.
That's right. That's right. Give me some more rights. If I'm going to give up every dollar to you, I want a few more rights thrown in.
At least let me have a break every once in a while. Like nobody's fucking letting up from that gas pedal. They just keep on hitting the
I know. I said
accelerator.
that for so many years. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could get like a free rent month every year?
Fuck, now you're
And
pushing it, bro.
and 1 month out of the year when you're doing rough and you're having or even if just you want to take a vacation or something, you just get 1 month out of the year that you can take a free rent month, and you just get to hold on to that money that you're going to put towards your rent, and you could take your family on vacation, or you could use it to pay a bill or whatever. But it would help so much just having that, because most people don't have any kind of backup if something happens. If your car breaks down, like if my car breaks down, I got to borrow money from my mother-in-law. I hate that, but I don't have money saved in the bank.
I'm just thinking because I'm like, imagine if it was like back in the day when your only worry was that a T-Rex was gonna eat you compared to now where it's like I
We
gotta
didn't
pay
live
this,
during
pay that, pay
T-Rexes.
this.
It'd be like what were those super bears and stuff. That's what we were worried about.
Can you imagine if back in the day, like all those commercials for Care Bears, if that was based on a real thing where there were bears that had magical powers that were cannibals that could fucking Sunshine Bear and he burns your face off with radiation? Like that'd be terrible.
That's awesome. What a crazy set.
It's like, where did those come from? It's like long ago. It's actually a very dark legend. So back in the day, during the glacial period, there were these Care Bears, a team of 5 bears that were hunted down and murdered because of the fact that they had these rainbow bear would cause rainbows to come out, and this rainbow would create such atomic radiation it would burn your flesh off. You're like, geez, how did it turn into a kid show? Well, everything that's horrible ends up turning down into Disney formation.
Well, Disney buys everything eventually.
They're gonna run out of stuff
They
soon.
are, man. Disney's buying up everything. Remember back 20 years ago when we weren't allowed to have monopolies? That's gone.
Dude, monopolies have always existed. Cable companies, for instance, they're all might
Oh
be
yeah, for
different brand
sure.
names, but they're all the same thing.
For sure, but it's all those regulations that they took away. There used to be a bunch of regulations that, kept you from being able to make monopolies and stuff. And the right people get in charge, and they cut a regulation here and they snip a regulation there, and they bypass this regulation here. And then the next thing you know, you can merge these companies into this multi, conglomerate, and you can rule the world like Jeff Bezos.
Not talking about Jeff. No. Uh geez, Jason, where can people find you, man?
I'm I'm all over the place. I'm on TikTok now.
What?
Yeah, I just started a TikTok, put a couple videos up. I know I look kind of retarded, but it's fun.
Well, what's the TikTok name?
It's just under Jason Lamproe. I'm the only Jason Lamproe in the world.
I don't believe that. There's got to be one other
No,
person
for
that's your
sure.
name.
I've looked it up. There's Lamprees, there's Lampreys, there's Lampree AEs and stuff, but no Lamproes. You know why? Because my name was made up by my great, 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 great grandpa who killed someone and then fled to Canada and changed
Wait,
his name to Lamproe.
what? Tell me this
Yeah.
story. How come I've never heard this? And why did
Well,
it
I
take
don't know
3
very much about it
episodes for you
either
to talk about it?
because, I've got a lot in here. You got to delve down. You got to delve for the treasures in my brain.
Well,
But
tell me.
yeah,
Come on.
I guess several generations ago, like my great 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 grandpa killed someone in the States and then had to flee to Canada so that he wouldn't be arrested for it. And he stayed up in Canada and he started a family up there and he changed his name to Lamproe. And I could see that because Lamproe does sound kind of French, but then he gave it like the American touch by making it an OE instead of an EAUX, like French style. Although I have said if I want to get fancy, I should do it LAMPREAUX, like like French Canadian style.
I'm gonna laugh if like someone that I'm
But
trying to.
anyway, yeah, he went up to Canada, started a family, changed his name to Lamproe, and then they eventually moved back down to the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas, and then they populated there. But in reality, I think there's less. Well, no, there's probably some of those off the gritters. I think there's less than 300 Lamproes, like in the world. It's spelled my way. I know all those Sam Smiths and Rob Johnsons and stuff, Robbie Robertsons. Y'all got everyone else's name.
I'm like, see, but I'm like the only white guy that's named Robbie Robertson. Anybody with the Robertson last name is not white.
But you got soul, man.
You know what Fat Albert's real last name was?
No,
Robertson.
Robertson.
Yeah,
Nice.
if you watch the movie, that's with Bill Cosby's in it before he went all evil.
Yeah. Well, he was always kind of evil, but he did make a fun cartoon.
That's all it takes. We forgive you if you make a fun cartoon.
Right? Well, look at Mr. Rogers, right? See?
Don't start. Don't start. Don't start.